Welcome to the Human Era podcast, a show where we discuss the future of humans in a world that is dominated by technology. What does tomorrow look like, and how can we stay true to what we really are? Humans. Welcome to a new episode of the Human Era podcast. My name is Ferry, I'm your host, and today I'm with branding expert Frans Jacobs. Frans, welcome today.
Thank you, welcome.
Frans, good to have you. Could you do us a favor and introduce yourself in like 30 seconds?
30 seconds is hard, but my name is Frans Jacobs. I'm born and raised in Venlo, the Netherlands. I am currently freelancing in the creative field as a strategist, branding strategist, creative strategist, you name it. The rest will follow, I guess.
Awesome, thanks. As I said, it's the Human Era podcast. I want to get to know a little bit about you as a human being. I've got a few questions for you, a few short questions. I just want to have you shout anything that comes to mind, but just the first thing.
Okay.
What do you do when you're at work?
Enjoy.
What do you do when you're off work?
Get inspired.
Cool. What is your biggest ambition yet to fulfill?
Experience the world.
What does it mean to you to be human?
Once in a lifetime.
What is your strongest personal trait?
Empathy.
And finally, to you, what is the meaning of branding?
Ooh, that's a good one. Trust.
Trust. Okay. Well, the reason I asked you the last one is because I know that you're an expert in branding and you did a lot of talks about what it means to be personal, what personal branding means and how it's being misused often. Why is personal branding misused often?
Let me start by saying personal branding to me is as old as people are. There's nothing, with the whole development of the internet, there's this whole new perception on personal branding because everything happens online, and when you talk personal branding, people think about creating content. They probably think about influencers that are building an online brand by posting pictures of themselves on Instagram, and there's nothing wrong with that, don't get me wrong, but it's the pure essence of personal branding, of you as a brand is just is everything you do, everything you say, everything you touch, everything you experience, everything you claim, every person you talk to. I know Jeff Bezos of course said branding is about what they say about you when you're not in the room, and that happened 300 years ago. The same thing, when you would walk out and in your knight armor, they would either say you're either a dick. I don't know if I can shout off or curse on this episode, but
Sure.
I do that a lot, so beware. If you're a good person or you're not, and that's basically your brand. So that's why it's been very misused, and that's why to a lot of people it's very scary when I talk about that. That's why I always make that statement, because everyone is. Even if you don't have any online profile, you still think about the way you dress when you go to a meeting, the way you shake a hand in a meeting, or not, because we're in Corona. But all these little elements, and or you just don't think about it. You just are who you are, which is in the end the best thing to do. But that's your personal brand.
True, but being who you are is automatically a brand, right?
Yeah. It's the only question you have for yourself is am I gonna work on it actively on the internet in order to benefit from it more, or am I just going to be who I am and don't bother with that? And people that do want to benefit from it on the internet is those are the people that start making content like you and I, and who spend time in it and see the possibilities that a personal brand on the internet has. So they start doing the effort, but in the end, it's you. It's nothing else.
Yeah, it makes sense. But where do you see this going? Because you said, well, more people are actively aware of their brand, their personal brand. More people like you and me are making content. Where do you see this going, and why is it getting more popular nowadays?
I think why it's becoming more popular is because people do see the benefit of it, and of course, it's a hot topic, and people think they can become quickly rich with being a personal brand, and getting sponsorships. And again, that's going back to what is a personal brand then. Where I see it going is then two ways. One, the internet, of course, is getting even bigger with the whole Web 3.0 movement. We're going to live our lives even more on the internet. But then it becomes it. You also slightly see a split in personal brands because it's um, you either be yourself or you go the completely other side and you become an alternative character on the internet. There's nothing wrong with both or either. Sorry. And that's an interesting development to me, like because of the Web 2.0 and the metaverse and the avatars, and people take a different persona on the internet, which is interesting because it's not different from who you are as a person. It's just a different side of who you are. For example, if your day job is you work for a corporate environment or a big bank or whatever, and you work in a suit all day, and then on the internet you dive into the world of gaming or NFTs or creative, and then you do art, and you don't want to, these people might have a different persona, a different side of themselves, being that persona on the internet. So that's an interesting part. And of course, with the Web 3.0 and the metaverse coming in the next 10 years, that's going to be an even bigger topic, I believe, because that's one of the promises that it gives us, of course, that we can be whoever we want to be, which is an interesting philosophical question then. So yeah.
But what you said Web 3.0, what does it mean? And what does it mean for us? Like it is we've got Web 2.0 now, but what's Web 3.0?
Yeah, so in short, Web 1.0 was, of course, the creation of the internet. Internet started, and when the internet started, it was more of reading. I always use these phrases by Chris Dixon, who said, okay, Web 1.0 was about reading. Like websites were magazines, and that was about it. There was nothing else you could do on a website except read some stuff or see some stuff. Then Web 2.0 came, which was the explosion of social media and mobile, and that allowed us to create. So that was what Web 2.0 was about, was creation. Um, and then we're slowly getting into Web 3.0, which is based on the concept of ownership. And having ownership on the internet is a new thing, and that's of course possible because of blockchain, and that will open up a whole new atmosphere of things, of possibilities, of you can own stuff on the internet. Like if we look at stuff now, I mean, for example, we're on Google, and you're probably going to host this podcast on YouTube. But if YouTube says, no, this is, you can't anymore, then your stuff will be gone, which is ridiculous because you actually made this. Like, this is you and I. Nobody else should own this except you and I. But that's not possible at this moment. Like, whole people build businesses on Shopify, on Google, on YouTube, on Instagram. Their complete livelihood is based on these platforms. But the scary part is, and don't think about this too long, but if one of those companies says, okay, we're going to stop doing this, then everything you worked for is just gone. It's literally gone. And that's insane. So why on the internet this is not the case? And that's the big development that's happening right now. And like I said, that's going to bring a whole lot of opportunities and for development and for and it's in the macro trend of to me the metaverse, and if to throw in another buzzword, is just more, it's not a place to me, it's more that we going to live our lives on the internet even more, and probably the balance will flip towards more internet than offline, more online than offline. And that is, the whole ownership of the whole concept of ownership is gonna make that possible, basically.
Okay, that's that's a big change, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
So, but that basically means that we get more ownership, which means that
yeah.
we can start really creating community. But if we go to more ownership, what does it mean to you? I mean, you're a branding expert. That means there's a lot of things going to change for organizations on the internet. There's a lot of things. If I just think about what you just said, it means that organizations who have a power place right now, they might potentially lose it. So what will their play be
Yep.
in Web 3.0? Like what will happen if they don't go with it?
Yeah. I think eventually everybody has to adapt. Don't get me wrong. And we're talking 100 years from now. Huh? We're not talking the next 5 years. We're talking macro. We're talking 50 to 100 years. In the end, every company or every brand or every organization will have to adapt to this development, just like they had to adapt to the internet, because that's how big this development is. They literally are calling it the biggest happening in the world, and for society as we know it, um, as big as when the internet came. So every brand and every corporation will have to adapt at one point, because it's the whole switch that is currently happening and that's going to happen is it's going to be a bottom up approach. It's going to be and that's a very typical phrase, but it's power to the people. It's the communities are going to decide, and it's not, it's not a boardroom full of people who are going to decide what's best for the people. No, it's going to be the people who are going to decide on the bottom, basically saying, hey, we would love to have this feature. We would love to have this kind of jackets. We love to have this kind of game. We love to have, stuff. You name it. They're going to come up with the ideas, and the companies that are open to that stuff, which is already happening. Like there's companies that do that, that operate like that. The of course the cryptocurrencies and the coins and the network like Ethereum, they operate like this. Like it's millions of people, and they decide what they want to do with the network because it's publicly owned. So to answer your question, every company, uh, it will take time, because of course we're talking generations then. So if I look at my parents' generation, they're probably a little too late. Like they're not going to fully adapt to Web 3.0. I think my generation, I'm 31 myself, we will be fully adapting to Web 3.0 eventually in the next 10 to 20 years. But then if you look at my brother who is 19 or younger, like they will, for them this is going to be in 10 years, this is just going to be the internet. It's just the most normal thing. I think the phrase metaverse will disappear eventually, because for the next generation it's becoming normal. Like we the World Wide Web, that's also a phrase we don't use anymore, and we don't surf on the internet anymore. But that's, to them, this is going to be super normal. So everyone has to adapt, and everyone will experience Web 3.0, even consciously or unconsciously.
That does make a lot of sense because we grew up with like Web 1.0. We're both in our 30s, so we kind of learn how it was to start discovering the internet. So it does make a lot of sense that younger generations are learning about like the metaverse just growing up. But I'm curious, just looking at your occupation, because you work with a lot of brands. What does it mean to you? Like, are you gonna change the way you work? Like, what's in it for you to move to like a Web 3.0 or look at NFTs and cryptos? What's in it for you?
Um, I definitely changed my way of thinking. And for example, one of the things I do is I invest in companies together with my partner Gregory Vanderweel. And so we're very passive right now, but I still have people, of course, coming to us to say, hey, can you please fund our startup, or we have a great idea. And I look at that stuff, and a lot of things are just Web 3.0. It's an old business model. It's based on top to bottom instead from bottom up, and it's all these little elements that I think this is not going to work. You're already lacking. You're already behind at this moment. So I'm definitely, with this new Web 3.0 classes that I put on. It seriously opened my mind, and I can't look at stuff differently any longer, because this is going to happen either way. It's inevitable, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, so everything I do and everything I see, and in my, either my work, my personal life, and the things that I want to research, is all has to do with this development and how this is going to play out. And for me, like I work on like the intersection of entertainment, the culture, as they like to say it, which includes gaming, sports, music, and then combine it with brands and companies. And on that intersection is that's the only thing I can think of at this moment, is just how is this going to play out on that intersection. Like, how are indeed NFTs and communities and bottom up, and new brands are going to operate in knowing with knowing that and knowing this development and how they're going to operate in the space of entertainment and culture. Because and it's interesting enough, if you go back to street culture, for example, that's still a very bottom up industry, because it starts on the streets basically, like, and whatever gets cool by the kids on the streets find it, they make it cool, and then eventually the big brands will pick it up and go run with it. And so this just came to me, by the way. That's still a very bottom up approach if you look at it like that. But then again, if you go to entertainment or sports, or that's definitely not bottom up. It's all controlled by the big bad bosses, and especially music, for example, but also soccer, football, and a lot is going to change.
But do we still need that way of working? Because if it starts in the streets now, I feel we need the bigger brands to make it huge. Like street influencers can make it noticeable, and then big brands will pick it up, right? And they will run with it, and they will use it. But if we move to a web where we have ownership, why would we still need that way of working? Like, are the big brands not going to just fall off? Because if now you're a street artist or whoever, or you pick it up at the street, isn't it yours now then?
That's a good question. I think definitely probably the biggest winners of, if you can speak of winners, there won't be any losers, but well, there will be losers. The brands who won't adapt, they will eventually fail 100%. The brands and business people that aren't capable of opening their minds to this and are not allowing, again, power to the people, they're gonna lose in the end of the day. The people that are gonna win are the creators. The creatives, the people that create stuff, that make stuff, that do art, do sports, do music, do the reading, writing, all these people which is interesting, because in the culture that we live in today, these are the people that we all know about, the artist that has no money to pay for rent and still wants to passionately make his art and believes in his projects, and yes, with this whole new approach, it can go directly to the artist, and it's very hard to explain because it's such a complex system of how that could possibly work. I honestly forgot your question.
Like, how is it going to change for brands? Like, if people pick it up on the
Oh
streets and
yeah,
they own it now, like, what
yeah,
if you, for example, because you do the band of insiders, right? And you talk a lot about
yeah,
technology and how it's going to change. And one of the things that we heard over there was that like music artists can now like own their own labels, or their fans can
yeah,
own the label.
yeah.
So what's Sony gonna do if that happens? Like, how should Sony adapt if that's a big change that's gonna happen?
Yeah, and I think the bottom line of that is one, they have to be open to it, and two, it becomes more, what can you do for me instead of what I can do for you, in terms of the artist. So the company has to now go to the artist and say, you can benefit from us by, we can give you this, we can give you that, we can give you that, we can give you that. Not just, hey, we are the gatekeeper, and if you want your music out there, you have to go to a big label. So you got to sign with us. So we're going to take 60% because you have no other fucking choice. And that's the other way around. Because now the artist will say, listen, you need my music because you cannot make music, and music is the art. So what you can do for me, like what are you going to do for me? And that is, again, power to the people, power to the creator. The people that actually create this stuff should be the most important person in this whole atmosphere of it. And then going back to, if we Nike is one of my favorite brands. I think they always have a space. One, because they adapt very quickly and they see what is coming. Two, they empower individuals already. And three, they probably be like distribution, for example. Like I can make hoodies myself and I can be awesome in it, but I cannot set up worldwide distribution and sell my hoodie, 100,000 times and do all this stuff around it and legal. And so they probably, I'm gonna probably Nike can come to me and say, hey, we love your art, but we're gonna do hoodies by funds, and we're gonna make a very good deal. We're gonna take 10% for the effort, or whatever, and we're gonna make sure it scales to it's possible to scale to the rest of the world. So now the whole balance of our relationship have changed. Again, all the power is at the artist, and not at the big corporation. And that to me is the big development that's going to happen.
Okay, so it kind of sounds like big organizations need to change the way they work now. So
Yes.
not the power play that they have, but more like providing value to the actual customers and creators, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's such a great development in general, is because again, it's indeed it goes back to, okay, instead of I'm in power and you have to listen to me and you have to sign with me anyway, and so I'm going to give you a shit deal and you will take it because there's no other option. We will go to, okay, what we can do to help you, and why, we want you to work with us because we love your art, and we have this whole infrastructure of things that we can help you with, and you can benefit from, and but we're not going to take 90% because there's 20 other companies that can do the same thing, but you can keep your ownership or whatever it may be at that point.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I kind of feel because I want to jump into what you said earlier when I asked those short questions. I asked you for your strongest personal trait, and you said empathy. How does empathy fit in all this? Like, how is empathy gonna have a big play in like the next 10 years, for example?
Yeah, I think it's a very important thing. I think people in general are the most important thing, and I think a lot of corporations forget about that. And to me, like I get energy from helping other people, and giving. It's one of my bad sides that I give away a lot of stuff, and then I should get paid for it, but I'm not asking any money for it. And then people say, "Oh, you should you should pay you for that." I'm like, "Oh yeah, well." It happened again, but it's okay. And that's why it's such a healthy transition that we're going to make in the next 10 years, because we have to start be more empathetic to other people, because it's again the power is going to disappear. Like the gatekeepers will no longer be necessary, because we don't need the gatekeepers. So in order to then convince me to work with your company, or for you to be able to sell my art, um, I need to like you, basically, and we need to help each other, instead of I need to help you, and I just need you for, or else I will, my art will never be seen by the world. So that's why I think it's a very healthy development, a very important development that needs to happen, because if we talk about the macro and all the things that we see going on in the world, even the whole vaccine distribution I cannot understand that we just that fucking 8% of Africa is vaccinated, and we're already getting a third shot, and then like there's still other people on the planet, and they deserve a good life too. You know what I mean? And so yeah, this whole development that's happening is for the better. I strongly believe that from a physiological standpoint. Jesus.
Philosophical.
Yeah, well, um, from that side, like from an empathy standpoint, from a human standpoint, this is a very good development.
But what does empathy mean to you? Because I hear a lot about empathy in like brands, and there's like social injustice,
Yeah.
indeed with the distribution of vaccines. But what is empathy to you? Like, how do you use it in your daily life?
Well,
Apart from giving away a lot of free content and
yeah,
expertise.
like it's I changed definitely in the last couple of years. Like I'm an entrepreneurial person, and when I was in my 20s, I definitely thought from, oh, capitalism is the greatest thing on earth, and survival of the fittest, and fuck everyone else. uh, Basically, and then that my mindset to that definitely changed in the last years, and looking at the big entrepreneurs, so the Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezoses, and I I kind of look at them now, not with inspiration. Like yes, they did amazing things, but they like, why stop now? Like, why not help hunger in the world and go solve human problems, instead of going to the moon because you want to be the first person on the moon, and all these things. Like they bother me. They started bothering me. Like, come on, man. You have 250 billion. Like you don't have to have another 50 billion. Like, no, I, I just can't wrap my head around that stuff. Like, what are you going to do with that even? It doesn't, and instead of that, you could just give 50 billion away, you still have 200 billion, and then solve world hunger, and help millions or billions of people. And I can't, yeah, yeah, it's just, I'm lack of words, as you can tell. It's like if you're in that position, and I still do believe in capitalism in some form, and I still believe that you need to work hard for what you want to achieve in life, and definitely don't wait for a handout and all other things like that. But I definitely see there's more to life than business and making money and yeah, that's definitely what changed for me the last 2 to 3 years, which yeah, it's this whole pandemic maybe definitely opened my mind to that, and that's what I try to do for myself too. Like I try to look at things not purely from a financial transactional standpoint, from an ambition standpoint, from like I definitely still want to be the best in what I am, but the best person I can be and make it as far as I want to be, but not to every cost. And that's definitely a switch I made for myself.
Yeah, that does sound a lot like empathy, like understanding what humans need and how the world is changing. One of my favorite sayings is what they say in an airplane when you have the safety instructions, like when they tell you put your mask on first and then help others to put their mask on.
Yeah.
I see two things happening, and I don't know if you agree with this, but I see two things happening in line with what you just said. There's a lot of people that don't necessarily make much, but they did understand that they need to share or help others. And I think they're empowering other people and leveraging, for instance, technology or new technology to make sure that they help people. And there's people who I have the feeling they put their oxygen mask on and then they cut off other people's oxygen masks, or,
Yeah.
or they neglect helping them and putting theirs on, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious because that's my field of work. You've got a lot of technology coming up now. I hear you say that like Web 3.0 is going to help empower people. It's gonna shift the whole dynamic. But what's going to be the play empathy compared to technology? I want to set this up a little bit because I've got a lot of discussions with people talking about like what humans are. I asked you before, like, what's it to you like being humans, exploring the world? It's getting to know stuff. It's getting to like learn other people. But a lot of people are looking at technology like we need to automate everything, and we need to have this whole like cool world. Everything is automation, which eventually means that empathy is gonna either move away, or technology is gonna leverage empathy and it's gonna leverage us. How do you feel that's gonna play out in, say, like the coming years, like up towards 2030? Like, what's the shift gonna be between what technology is gonna do and what humans are gonna do, and how can we keep that empathy within those humans?
Hmm. Um, Very good question. Um, I believe I do have to. It's a good question. I have to think about it for a sec. Um, I think again, going back to the development that is happening right now, it's if we would go on the way we are going on right now in terms of technology, I see a very negative outcome in terms of power and in terms of data and protection and privacy, and people are sheeps when it comes to your data is being used and sold by other companies, and all this is stupid stuff. And what I believe, going back to, for example, Facebook, and I remember 2 years ago I watched Mark Zuckerberg going for Congress, and after his whole privacy debacle, and he screwed up so many things, and then I look at Congress and they asked him questions and they had clearly no idea what they were talking about. And then I thought, so the problem is not, everybody knows that they are a problem. This how powerful they are. The biggest problem is who's going to stop them? Nobody, because even Congress doesn't understand what the hell he's doing. So they are so powerful. Again, Amazon, Google, Facebook. That my biggest question is not if they are bad. My biggest question is who's going to stop them. So in and then we're talking Web 2.0. Like if we continue in that direction, and they're going to become bigger and more powerful, and like yeah, that's not a very human development. Now, if we go back to Web 3.0, where we said again, it's bottoms up. I think that's a very good development when it comes to humanizing technology and making technology work for us instead of the other way around, and giving this distribution of wealth and giving people opportunity to escape from their daily routine when it comes to earning a living and living your life. And so I do believe that is the good development. And I think that's very important that we focus on that and that it's actually going to happen. But you see on the other side that who are the powers that are trying to stop this is the financial systems, the indeed the Facebook and Googles of this world. Yeah, they all say that they're working on it, and but look at Facebook. They're trying to make their own metaverse, and they're trying to capture, the masses into believing that this is going to be it. Like what Facebook is going to build is going to be your version of the metaverse in order to just keep you in that same cage again. Now it's just called Meta, and it's instead of Facebook. So uh, he hopes he's going to win, and for people listening, the metaverse will not be a one company wins it all thing. It's going to be there's going to be a whole spectrum of worlds and things you can do and live and learn in. And it's not going to be, oh, there's going to be one metaverse and it's owned by Facebook. Definitely not going to happen. Um, will he have a place in this new space? Yes. Will there be a Facebook metaverse? Yes. Will there be people on there? Yes. And it's definitely the people that like we were talking generations. It's going to be the older generations that are familiar with Facebook, who are probably going to be stepping into their first metaverse experiences through Facebook. But the next generations, no, definitely not. Definitely not. So again, going back to your question, I think it's a great development also from that perspective that it's technology working for us instead of the other way around.
But isn't there still a risk? Because we're going to Web 3.0, and we as people are more empowered on that call it a platform. But isn't it still the fact that if you have Meta, which used to be Facebook, you have now Meta, creating a metaverse, can it not purchase all smaller metaverses, integrate into one, and still force everyone to go there? Because if you have like Facebook's metaverse and Coca-Cola and Nike and Reebok decide to go there, advertise there, build their business inside that metaverse, it's going to grow in power, which means that people ultimately will get attracted to like one verse, which is owned by Facebook. Isn't there a huge risk that that's going to happen?
I don't believe so.
How so?
Because in the end of the day, the real power is with attention. Mm-hmm. And people decide where the attention goes. So if they're not comfortable in the Facebook space because they know like how misused their data is and how misused their persona is, you can either go to that metaverse, for example, if just to give it a computer, or you go to the metaverse that is owned by no one and that's created by millions of developers and that nobody owns or decides what is going to happen. No, we all decide as a group what is going to happen. That's why Facebook cannot just go and buy these places, because there will be a million people voting, and Facebook cannot give them all 10 million bucks. So like, no, they're going to say no. Like, why would we want to be owned? That goes against the whole idea of what they're trying to do. So you go from a place where everybody has a say to now being bought out, and like, who will you pay for that? Like, who will, like, I'm just getting stuck now because it won't. So normally you go to a company, say, I want to buy the company, mm-hmm. right? Then the board or the core people of the business say, okay, we're going to do it. We want 100 million. And now I'm just brainstorming now. But then again, if you then go to a metaverse that's being built by, again, a million people, then who are you going to contact and say, well, we want to buy this, but what are you buying? Like, are you buying the million people that are all working on it? No, probably half of them say, fuck you. No, we're not going to do that. So then everything fails. So no, I can't see it happening in my head at this point. And again, it's like, what will Nike decide? Are they going to be in the space where some people are, and it's not really it, and it's older generations maybe that are active over there, or are they going to go to the shiny new thing where the people are in power and where they have, tens of millions of people actively engaging, and it's owned by no one. I think in the end, Nike will decide to go that route instead of sticking with the Facebook route.
I think that that should depend on how they work right now, right? If you're looking for like product market fit or whatever, I think they should test out every metaverse or platform there is and just see which one sticks. But I do feel what you're saying. If it's owned by everyone, it's owned by no one, right? If it's
Yeah,
owned by the group, you cannot purchase the whole thing because there only
the
has to be
internet, for
one.
example.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot purchase the internet because it's owned by everyone and everyone can create on it.
Yeah,
That does make a lot of sense, and that brings me to the following thing because it means that organizations need to follow. They need to see where the potential is and basically still do the same thing on Web 3.0 as on 2.0, right? Just see what people want and then create
yeah,
for those people. But the dynamic's going to shift, so people are going to be more empowered. So the brands need to work together rather than using and abusing them in some cases.
yeah.
But what does it mean for what you and I are going to do? Just talking about like jobs, things are going to change. A lot of things can be automated right now. Also, on the advertising side, on maybe even if you go to the metaverse, maybe things can be automated right there. What are we going to do? Like, what will our jobs look like in the next 10 years?
Um,
Like in that space to grow along with it, because if Nike's going to go to the metaverse, what does my skill need to be to work there, right?
I think I have I when I ever go stop working, which probably will be never, but I would love to have another look at the school system.
Okay.
And that sounds maybe very far away from your question, but what I mean by that is that we people that are being schooled at the moment or going to school and being taught a lot of things, they are learning a lot of the wrong stuff because a lot of concrete skills won't matter in the metaverse. And I think one of the most important skills that's necessary for a person to be able to stick with this is adaptability. Is how fast can you adapt? It's like it's being open-minded and it's being adaptable. So if you see this now, and I don't know how this is going to play out in for every person or every business group, but in bottom line, it will come back to how can you adapt to this development and how are you able to learn new things. So on school, in my opinion, they should uh, teach you how to learn, not a concrete example of history. No, teach me how I can learn a new skill, how I can learn a new and understand a new language, or how can I understand a culture or understand a part of history. And instead of, no, you need to know that between 1950 and 1960, this happened. Like that's not the skill that we're going to need because I saw this meme of remember back in our day when teachers said, you have to calculate math in your head because you won't always have a calculator with you. Well, look at us now because we have the whole world in our palm of our hands every time, every second of the day. So, but like again, like that, the fact that they learned us math, of course, it's not useless. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, but like it's much more important again to be taught how to learn and how to adapt and how to see possibilities and all these soft skills instead of just the very hard skills like, oh, you need to be able to do 10 minus 5 x whatever. So going back to your question, there's room for almost everyone, but the most important thing, because again, this is not all, don't get me wrong, like there will be winners and losers. There will be people that will maybe lag behind a little bit, but it's also up to the other people that do understand to help that group of people again to adapt. Just like and what happens in democracy in general in a country, which can do better. Talking about a top to bottom and a bottom up approach when it comes to politics, but that's a whole nother conversation. Um, um, So it's also up to us as a society to then make create other things for that group that might fall in between here. And but then again, if for example basic income is to me a very interesting concept when it comes to that, because what would people do with their time if they don't have to worry about the foundational rights you should have to be alive, basically, and to have some food on the table and to have a place to stay. Um, we don't know. But I do believe it's a very interesting idea that's probably going to play out also because of this. Also because there will be a bigger group of people that will be in between technology and they'll lose their jobs and they're maybe too old or to adapt. I once read a book on world economy, and they said it's a lot of economists think that if you take away a factory in village A, and people have worked there all their life, that these people are going to say, oh, you know what, I'm going to learn a new skill, I'll go work in another factory, or I'm becoming a baker now, or I will just travel 45 minutes to go to another town in order to do the same work. In theory, that sounds amazing. That's probably what people do, but in real life, that doesn't happen. Like they don't reschool themselves. They just go into unemployment. Um, so we can either then say, okay, no, this is what should happen, and then leave it as what it is, and unemployment rates are going up, or we're gonna face the real problem and see how we can help these people indeed still make a living for themselves with all the skills they do possess. So I think it's two different groups of people when it comes to generations again, and the people who are now on an age that still have to work for the next 20 years. I think it's very important that you need to be open-minded and being able to adapt to new things. And then it's up to us to help that other group that might fall behind on this development, which is sad, but it's true, and very important that we're going to help them somehow.
But aren't you afraid that, like, if technology's taken over parts of our job, and say we go to basic income, and everyone has enough money to literally have the basics, so a house, food, etc. What are we gonna do? Like, are we just gonna sit around? What would you do if that would happen? If I were to offer you today, I will pay for your entire regular lifestyle. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna just stop working completely, or are you gonna find something to do?
I did. It depends on what kind of glasses you look with towards this, and that is either with a very positive set of glasses or a very negative set of glasses. I'm a very positive guy, so I'm going to look for the positive glass. I think it's again going to be divided in two groups. I think there's going to be a group that indeed is going to do nothing,
Hmm.
just live their life, and just going to be, it happens now too. Don't get me wrong. They just don't have to stress anymore of having to pay for a place. But there's people, I probably won't change a thing, and I'm very fortunate that my work doesn't feel like work. It feels like I'm hobbying all day, uh, which sometimes even makes me feel weird because like I'm getting paid for just fucking around, basically. That's in a good sense. So I won't change a thing. But there will also be a group that now has to work a job they hate, and they are going to explore something else that they truly love, but that probably won't pay as much as the job that they're having right now. And how much happier are they going to be, and how will that then play out in their kids and their loved ones? And you know, again, it's I don't want to sound too everything is going to be pink and everything is going to be a happy place, and there's still going to be problems, but there always will be. But I do believe it's a more healthy way of living, because people, instead of being enslaved almost by their 9 to 5, they can just decide, well, I don't have to worry about paying for my rent or paying for my food. I can just do what I always love to do. That's why I always love that I threw it in the Discord as well. Like, what would you do if success was inevitable? Like, what's the ideal? Like, and then becomes the question, why aren't you? Why aren't you starting that, I don't know, that school that you want to build, or that the art that you want to make? And then the question, the thing is, the answer is always money. There's always that I need to pay my bills. But if that's taken away, and if we as a society decide, okay, we find this important and everybody has the right to live, then what would you do with the time? I think it's a very interesting question. But to go back to your question, like I said, I probably wouldn't change the thing, and that's because I'm very happy with what I do. I do that in general, by the way. I would never take a high paid job over something that I do for fun. I just can't. I just can't. It's just not in my nature. It's just no. I did once because I had to. Um, um, Again, because I needed money to pay my rent, and I was out of a job at that point. And then I was like, okay, I need to grab something. So I went to work for a recruitment company, and that whole company went against everything that I believe in. And after 3 months, I thought, nope, this is not going to be it. And then, but it was a good experience to actually experience that for once. That how is it to be at a job that you don't like, and then you run out of the office at 5 p.m., which I never understood. But now, then I understood. It's like, oh man, I can't wait until it's 5 o'clock. Looking at my watch, and so it was a good experience. But it also, yeah, I would, nah, never again.
I can relate. I used to say I'd give up half my salary for more fun in my job
Yeah,
because I didn't have fun in my job, and then you're gonna dread the days. And those were the days that I wish that they would have automated my job and just sent me home, like find something else.
exactly,
I
exactly.
completely get it. I completely get it. So, but does that mean that we just need to figure out ways that we can be more of ourselves and have more fun in our jobs? Is that where we should go, according to you?
I
If we
mean,
can, if we can, right?
yeah, if we look at how do you run an organization, I think how you make sure you optimize the people that work for you the best is give them the things they like to do instead of the things that they don't like to do. So if that works in a corporation, in a business, then I believe that would work in an economy too. If everybody, and that's very and ideally talked, of course, but I think that's the way we should talk about it to understand a little bit is if everybody would do what they would love, then a whole lot of problems will probably go away. And then if we indeed, going back to how we can use technology, then if we can use technology in order to do the jobs that nobody wants to do, then the world's going to be a better place. I believe. Um, and I think that's the ideal world we should probably work towards or try to get as close as possible, um, so that people, again, won't be enslaved by going to do a job because they have to. No, you can just go get another job that you do like, and still don't have to worry about, money.
Okay, and that's interesting. Because on that note, I actually have like one final thought that I want to provoke from you. Um,
Yeah.
what is the number one skill that people should focus on right now? Because you said the school system, and I feel for that the school system is lacking behind. We're still
Yeah.
being educated for like the third industrial revolution when we've already entered the fourth. We're still learning how to do that 9 to 5 job and work a conveyor belt. But if it's up to you, if there's one human skill that we should focus on to develop for the coming years, as a person, you as a listener, what would that skill be?
Um, I think in general it's soft skills, so EQ instead of IQ. Um, but to go to a specific skill, I'll probably go back to learning how to learn. And that is in um, I think a lot people around me, they understand that concept. Like if I'm interested in something, I know how to get good at it or understand it. But to have that soft skill, like one that I want this, I want to understand, um, but also knowing how, and developing your mind that way that you are capable of doing and finding your resources and looking at resources and where do I need to be, what do I look out for, what shouldn't I read, what should I read, look from different angles and really dive in and understand the space. I think that's learning how to learn is a very very important skill that should be taught on schools instead of you need to know what 2 times 4 is. No, teach me how to learn math if I'm interested in math. I think that's a different approach.
So it's not tell me what to learn, but how to learn.
Yes,
Okay, that sounds
that's a good
awesome.
summary.
That sounds awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would want to tell the listeners as a like a final thought?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was a very interesting conversation. You took me places I didn't expect to be taken before I jumped to this call. But I do like a lot of these things, so thank you for that. The last thing I want to say is indeed this whole development might sound very scary, and this is, for your field. I think again, be open-minded. I think that's bottom line. Like, don't stay stuck in the ways you've been doing or your company's been doing or the work you've been doing for the last 10, 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Be open-minded. Like, what will this mean for what I do, for what I love, for the business that I have or the business that I work for? What will this mean? Like, because this whole evolution is inevitable. I cannot state that strongly enough. So be open-minded to that and look at things differently. Like I almost say everybody I'm sending the same podcast to, by Chris Dixon. Definitely put it in the notes for people to give a listen. But when I send it to someone, I tell them, forget everything you know and then listen. Because if you don't go like, yeah, but this is not good. Like, open your mind, forget everything, open your mind and listen what this person has to say, because he explains it in 5 mental, how do you say that, mental structures or something, I believe. So it's very concrete examples of how this might play out. And then it's not like, oh, I agree or I don't agree. No, it's like, okay, how would then go and sit with yourself and your thoughts and think, how will this influence myself? How will this possibly influence my business? And again, it's a must. So be open-minded and start digging in, or let it happen. That's also another thing. I like, don't stress about it. Like, just let it be and let it happen and see. Just go with your gut and your heart. And if you don't want to be involved, don't be involved. And if you like it, go be involved. And yeah, that's So don't stress about it too much if you don't understand or want to understand. That's also a decision. So that's all good too. But it's coming. It's inevitable.
It for sure is gonna happen.
Yeah.
Fons, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for giving us so much food for thought. And to you out there listening, stay tuned and stay human.
Thank you, Anne. Bye-bye.